We are excited to have Dan Canfield. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us this morning. Dan is representing John and June's mission with Hike to Heal. And I'll give you a quick bio on Dan. Dan has a master's in public health, and he is the founder of Hike to Heal. As a former caregiver of his grandparents, Dan personally experienced the challenges of caregiving, including isolation and exhaustion. After his grandparents passed, just months apart, Dan rediscovered himself by hiking. Hike to Heal became his passion, with the desire to help other caregivers connect with others on a similar journey and experience the healing power of nature. In 2018, he founded Hike to Heal to accomplish this mission. Dan, welcome, and thank you so much. And we're excited to hear what you have to present today.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Thank you guys for having me. Good morning. I'm Dan Canfield with John and June's Mission. We're a 501c3 organization based here in Boise, Idaho. And then Hike to Heal is our caregiver adventure program, where we take caregivers on outdoor adventures that I want to share a little bit more about our organization. But first, a little bit of background about me. When I was in my last year of college, I was applying for jobs like most would. And then the full-time job that I landed was not one that anyone would ever apply for. But I became a full-time live-in caregiver for my grandparents. So at that time, I had no idea what a caregiver was. I didn't know any resources that were out there. I didn't know how to be a good caregiver. Again, kid out of college, no clue what I was doing. But what really struck me was I had no idea how many others were really also struggling with their caregiver journeys and that caregiver burnout. So as Karen had mentioned, my grandparents they passed just months apart from each other. And I started hiking. That was just kind of my outlet. I needed to be out in nature. I needed just some reprieve, some respite time. I didn't do a good job when I was a caregiver. You just go, 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 go. I didn't take any time for myself. I took no respite break. So after they passed, I started hiking. And over the course of the next year, I hiked a couple thousand miles. And just there was something very healing for me being out on that trail and the wilderness therapy that I experienced. Thought, well, if this works for me, it could work for others. Caregiving is something that affects, or typically will affect, everybody in this Zoom. Next slide, please. Thanks for running the slides for me, by the way. So Rosalind Carter, former First Lady, said there's 4 kinds of people in this world: those who have been caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and then those who will need caregivers. So it seems that this business of caregiving is really an unavoidable and necessary part of our life. But with that, there's the backbreaking work, the emotional drain, the burnout. It really does change relationships. A lot of caregivers really do experience that burnout that I experienced, which is just that state of physical, emotional, mental exhaustion. It happens and you're fully taking care of somebody else. And then here in Idaho, right, 1 in every 4 Idahoans is a family caregiver. And you need that respite, that time away, that break. So we kind of identify and just say the respite, but our goal is to give caregivers a break from caregiving. Next slide, please. So with that, seasoned caregivers know, right, the secret to success is just to take that time for yourself, time to recharge, time to get outside, time to play about a bit. So Hike to Heal is that resource for Idahoans who are the caregivers. We were founded in 2018, as Karen mentioned. We've been connecting caregivers through outdoor adventures. So essentially, it's all about just getting that break from caregiving. And our mission is to be a support system to caregivers through those outdoor adventures so that essentially they can regain balance and that perspective. Next slide, please. So we go on day hikes, backpacking trips, snowshoeing, and it's really about having those caregivers connect with others on a similar journey. Our adventures are open to all experience levels welcome. We really want it to be, we do have some harder hikes, harder climbs that we do, but we really try to do as easy of trails that we can find so that it's about getting outside, getting with others on a similar journey, not necessarily conquering a mountain, but just being out and having that respite time in the healing power of nature so that caregivers can truly come, they can take a break, and experience the power of nature and try to regain that balance during their caregiver journey. Next slide, please. So this is a 2024 event calendar for us. We have some snowshoeing events coming up here, January, February, and March. And then we have our 2 backpacking trips. All expenses are covered for caregivers, including transportation, food, equipment, supplies. So just kind of a quick of what it looks like for the snowshoeing or day trips. We leave from the Treasure Valley area, we load into the vans, we have the snowshoes rented for those that don't have snowshoes. We bring the food, equipment, we have some hot chocolate, things like that. We go up, we hike the trails. For 2 of the 3 snowshoes, we do a soak in the hot springs after our hike, and then we head back to the Treasure Valley. So those are more of the day trips. Our backpacking trips are overnight trips in which we leave on a Thursday afternoon from the valley, and we trek up to we've done the White Clouds Wilderness, Payette National Forest, but anyhow, we go up to a national forest, national area, and we have a base camp Thursday night. We hike up to a high alpine lake on Friday. Then we have Friday night, Saturday night up at a high alpine lake, and then we hike out Sunday. So those are overnight trips. And it's really just trying to the caregivers to take that time away from caregiving, which really does strengthen your ability to be a better caregiver, right? Go back, recharge to be a better caregiver. And for those that participate, again, all expenses are covered, but we do also have respite vouchers, which is a really great way. So one of the barriers when I was a caregiver is, right, I'm going to go hike. Who's going to take care of my grandma and grandpa? So we have respite vouchers so that someone can pay someone of their choice to come in, take care of their loved one while they get away and get some respite. So next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of just ways that you can get involved. If you know a caregiver or a former caregiver, please share this information with them. Again, there's enough of a financial burden with caregiving, so we've always wanted all of our trips to be covered for all the caregivers. So please share this with anyone who is a caregiver or even a former caregiver and took care of a loved one who's maybe passed since. But give, connect, and hike. We do have volunteer opportunities that are community-based, but then also in trails. We look for people that want to lead a hike. Also we take a couple volunteers to help out with the backpacking trip. We've had, again, all experience levels welcome. We've had people that have attended our trips who have never once slept in a tent a night in their life. And so with helping out with some of those camp chores, camp tasks, things like that, helping someone set up a tent, preparing food, things like that. So we take a couple volunteers on each of our backpacking trips. And then community connections. We have different fundraisers, sponsorships, and things throughout the community that we're always looking for help for there. So next slide. This is just a little bit more, a couple more photos, and then this is our website there that's in the center of the slide, as well as our email address. And then I will add, we have a YouTube video. If you search Hike to Heal and just put in Hike to Heal Caregivers, then a couple of videos will pop up. But it gives you an idea of one of our trips looks like. It goes through, it's only a 2 to 3 minute video, depending on which one you click on. And you can watch the video from one of our trips. It gives you an idea of what it looks like, the group size. We go up with 15. So we don't want it too large, but we don't want it small, but to have that kind of respite time. And you naturally see the caregivers connect with one another, and we've had some of that mentorship form where maybe we've had someone who's lost a spouse just a week ago go on a trip versus someone who lost one a few years ago. So there's that mentorship of, this is what I was dealing with 2 years ago and this is how I can help you, and you kind of see that naturally form. On our trips, we also do a kind of wilderness therapy poetry session. That's also really powerful to just watch people. We sit around, kind of around a campfire and sharing your story. And it's not necessarily writing poetry, but we have a master's student who's getting his master's in poetry from Boise State come and lead that. And it's really a wonderful session that just helps people kind of write out their feelings and their healing and things that really also helps bond the group over the course of the trip as well. So check out the YouTube video under Hike to Heal Caregivers, and then there's several of them to choose from there. And then there's also lots of different pictures as well on our website. And then that's our email address there. That's kind of the quick about us. I wanted to leave 5 minutes or a few, for questions or other things that I can answer if anybody has any questions. And thank you so much for letting me share a little bit about us.
Hi, Dan. We do have a question in the chat.
Absolutely. Let me pull it up here.
Is there limited space? I think you mentioned 15 people. How much advance notice is needed if you've got that 15 limited space amount? What do you recommend when people are needing or interested in signing up? How much notice should they plan for ahead of the schedule to try to get in and meet that time or that space limitation?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a first come, first serve essentially, but that's why we release our calendar January 1st, which we have now. We don't register, the registration for our backpacking trip opens May 1st. So there's still time. But we'll essentially get on the sooner the better to get and hold the spots because we do. And I guess I will say too, we do the 2 backpacking trips. If we had, let's say our wait list was another 15 more, we would do a 3rd trip, right? I mean, that's kind of the thing of where we've been. If these are essentially the numbers we're filling, but if all of a sudden, let's say we had 60 people that want to go on a backpacking trip, we have funds to do 4 trips in a year. So reality, we haven't had to really turn anybody away and be like, sorry, there isn't space. And in 1 year we had just 1 extra, so we took 16. So there's some, essentially flexibility there on that end, right? But for the most part, we're trying to fill the need that there is.
Now, on some of your typical hikes that you're taking, what's the time
Yeah.
commitment that somebody's making to take that? How much time should they set aside for that or be prepared when they're planning?
Yeah, absolutely. So our day hikes are just after work one night, we'll go somewhere around the Boise area in the foothills and we'll meet after work at 5 or 6 o'clock time, depending on the time of year in the dark. But we do an hour and a half hike. So those are just quick of getting together, being with other caregivers. So our day hikes are kind of just a couple hour event type things. The snowshoe events are the full day. So we typically leave late morning, but then we're back about dinner time. So you're looking at maybe a 9 to 5 kind of a full day activity. And then our backpacking trips are the Thursday afternoon. So we leave the valley. We meet at about 3 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, and then we're back Sunday right about 3 p.m. So it's essentially a full, Thursday through Sunday weekend.
That's awesome. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. I want to make sure.
There's actually one other that
Yeah.
I already answered, but I'll let you answer. Can I share this in a local autism moms group? A lot of us are personal care providers for our children and don't get respite.
Absolutely. Yes. Please share by all means. If you know of a caregiver, share this with them and get them our info. They can connect. If easier, they can email us and we can get them all the info. You could send them to our website, but absolutely feel free to share.